We're live. Welcome everyone to the show. Still trying to figure out this streaming software and why it was working just a bit before, but that's okay because I have an outline for my discussion. It's going to go a bit in depth, so I hope you bear with me. And the discussion is about the apocalypse, the spiritual apocalypse. I really am getting tired of people making predictions about the physical apocalypse because I mean that could happen at any given point in time with the advent of nuclear weapons. I mean, right? We could just be poofed off the earth. Remember the Bay of Pigs incident in the Cold War? I mean, we don't really know the day or the hour when the world's going to end, but we can certainly read the signs of the times. We can certainly look at um, what what is happening in the world and where is it going and is it going anywhere good? And I think we all know the answer to that question. It ain't. But um, I think knowledge is power in this regard. I think we can't just gloss over things and just say, well, we're not really sure what's going on, and let's just let things go as they may. What's the big deal? What's the worst that could happen? Because those are the people that end up getting sent to the gulags, or end up getting completely steamrolled when things begin to fall apart. I'm not advocating for that. I am advocating for discernment here and us to look practically at how messed up the world is and how we can adjust ourselves and repent of what's been screwing us up in the first place. So, the first part of this discussion is the what the spiritual apocalypse is, and this is how I define it. The spiritual apocalypse that we are seeing unfold, which has been unfolding starting in 2020 for sure with the lockdowns, but it really has been unfolding with the death of our culture, and it resembles the beginning of the end of the fall of Rome. Okay, the last years of the Roman Empire for me resemble what we're at least talking about. What was going on during that time? Well, we had rampant corruption. We had a state-regulated religion. We had just complete denial of the fall of Rome, or just very little concern on the behalf of the citizens of what was going on. And we had this huge amount of neurosis, disorder, vice that was just appearing everywhere in Rome. They were just completely partying themselves to death. But you can't just say, well, they just fell apart because they were losing their minds. There are very specific things that happened. And I think the first thing that happened in Rome that we can all see that as a parallel is this idea that the state will take care of everything and that the height of our civilization is the state. And I mean that spiritually. Their religion was actually state based. They actually had a spiritual worship of the state. They worshiped the emperor as a god, and they prided themselves, the Roman Empire, as an actual spiritual authority of the times, and the success of the Roman Empire proving that the gods of the Romans were the strongest gods. In polytheistic paganism, what you usually see is often they would judge the fruits of their religion by the success of their kingdom, because they believed that the gods would bless whatever kingdom was the most powerful. So the Romans had the most powerful empire, and therefore their gods must be supreme. That was their logic. On top of that, you would see an embarkment away from traditional values and more towards materialism. That's what was happening with the cover of religion to kind of hide it. Just this hollowing out of their philosophy. Now, their religion to me never really had much depth. I always thought that it was kind of an interesting. It was almost like the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung explains it. It was an actual collective unconscious of humanity put into religion in a very free flowing way. So, and I had a previous broadcast on this before. Let's say you were wanting to get something out of life. It could be love, it could be success, it could be money. You would pray to the gods, the idols of those particular aspects of reality, metaphysical or physical, and you would hope for a miracle. You would hope for divine favor from the gods. And that was the gist of what the religion was. Now, I'm not going to say that there weren't spiritual encounters and experiences within this religion. I actually have kind of a unique stance, kind of like what Jonathan Pageau says. But to make a long story short, that was the gist of most of their religion. Their rituals were to embolden the state, to amplify the state's power, to unite themselves as a people, and to get stuff out of life. It was almost magical in the way they saw it, except they were worshiping gods and they feared the gods. So now I made this broadcast about how most people are practicing pagans because we put things above the point of Christianity. Many people that practice Christianity often have other agendas in their hearts and minds that do not align with Christ's agenda, and therefore, and to the point where often it resembles the Romans, and that's another reason why I call it the spiritual apocalypse. Okay, we put all of our eggs into these baskets that really aren't at the heart of the gospel, but at the same time, we're like, hey, man, I'm into Jesus, leave me alone. I just go to church and then I go home and I, give people middle fingers in traffic and I shop till I drop afterwards. What's wrong with that? I'm a Christian, I don't read the Bible. I don't know anything about, how to properly behave as a Christian, but I'm a Christian, baby. Come on. Hey, oh, come on. I mean, me and Vinny, we go way back as Roman Catholics. We've been Catholic, we're Italian. The usual stuff we're so used to seeing, this cultural, superficial understanding of Christianity. And my thesis for that was, well, if you love something more than God, then that's your true God. And I think that holds up. I think that stands the test of time. And that's what was happening kind of in the Roman, the fall of Rome. As Rome fell apart, as Rome falls apart, what happens to your concept of the meaning of the universe? What happens to your cosmological understanding? It falls apart, right? Because they decided to themselves, they foolishly and lazily decided, well, the god the gods, we know the gods to be true because our state is more powerful, and therefore, because our state's more powerful, our gods are most powerful. And then came the Northern Europeans, who they let be part of their military, who start rebelling against the corrupt government, and then they started getting their butts kicked. And they started having some really bad emperors, some really infamous ones, and just outright just either incompetent or downright evil, like Emperor Nero, right? The infamous Emperor Nero fiddled while Rome burned, as the legend goes. And so when you try to make a supernatural thesis off of material gain, well, when the material gain leaves, you kind of have a lot of egg on your face. And isn't that what's happening similarly to the West? I can see it happening here, although I do believe that in the States and in Eastern Europe, we are still a little bit more grounded. Oh, and the underground persecuted church in China and other places, they are more grounded in the point, the real reason for the season, the real meaning of Christmas and Lent and Easter. They are more grounded in that. But I mean, we still have some serious issues. And so, although we may not politically see total breakdown yet, do we not see that similarly in the new gods, aka, let's say, the economy and financial gain? All right, how many times are we going to bash our stupid head skulls into the wall over the economy? Now, I'm glad that we have a strong economy, but how many times, like, fool me once, fool me twice, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. Like, how many times we're going to fall for this thing where life is about money and I'm going to be successful and I'm going to I'm a robot, and then you get flattened, and your completely deceived brain goes into panic mode because you thought that you would be given your cozy material dream. You're settling down, and it didn't happen. Now, am I against having a nice house and the American dream? Absolutely not. But to think that you're guaranteed it is the height of stupidity. To think that you're guaranteed a stable, peaceful life and society is the height of ignorance and stupidity. And we're just gonna, and what we're seeing is what I'm sure what the Romans were experiencing. But the emperor is supreme, and we're Romans. This can't happen to us. Right? Like, if you've seen the famous art piece of the fall of Rome, you can just see people panicking and killing themselves, and it's just awful as Rome gets sacked. Well, although that may not be happening yet, it's happening in people's minds, right? And on both sides of the political spectrum, we're seeing that. Um, what's another thing that's similar? Well, now this one has been going on for a while, and we're finally seeing the fruits of this, and that is the sexual revolution. Life is about pleasure. Life is about fun. The party ain't over. The pool's not closed. And now it's turning into a total cope. Like, you can see that people that still try to do this like hookup culture thing, and they're going nuts, right? They're losing their minds too. They're losing their minds. It's the Cope nightclub. You can see they're kind of like, come on, let's keep the party going, come on. And there's this sad, frantic look in their eyes. There is a video, the party's over by Black Pill, which just very much explains how people are like in such denial as to the fact that the party's actually over. Okay. Um, Other people are just descending into ever greater excess and perversion, because they have no idea about how the mind, heart, and soul works, and they're just going to keep. They're going to be hooking car batteries to their nose hairs. They're just doing anything that they can possibly do to get a thrill, and it's getting more and more dangerous. They're trying different drugs. Oh, that's definitely happening. So, um, that's the spiritual apocalypse. And you can say, well, I'm more interested in the physical apocalypse. When's that going to happen? And I do think that there is a political and physical apocalypse inevitably approaching, especially considering what's going to happen politically in the states. Either way, it's going to be bad. If Joe Biden gets in, the lemmings and blue pilled, frothing, slobbering consumer liberals are going to have this garbage celebration that's not going to last. They're going to force themselves to be happy and then realize that Joe Biden will give them nothing but more emptiness. And then they're really going to enjoy it when communists begin to take over the government, and they're the first to be hauled off because, but wait, you're going to just give me more minimum wage, but I thought you were going to help me because increased minimum wage is totally amazing, right? I don't understand how that works. A few extra bucks is going to save your life. Oh, wait, I have to go to a bread line. There's no more Starbucks because capitalism's bad. Oh, what am I going to do? Right. And they're going to have this big, pathetic, they're going to implode anyway. And the conservative, if President Trump gets in, well, what's the difference there? Well, the left will have another blubbering hissy fit, just a little bit more early on schedule, and they'll go, Donald Trump is, and they're going to get slapped around by the cops, and they're going to hopefully, learn the lesson, and then they're going to go back to their own conspiracy land of how despite the fact that the economy is better than ever, and despite the fact that Donald Trump has done so much more for anti-war and anti-prison industrial system than they have ever dreamed of, which they supposedly are against. Because they're little mental midgets and they're puppets for the Democrat media. They're going to pretend that Trump isn't amazing because they're weak and they're mind controlled and they really don't believe in anything. They really believe in whatever they're told to believe. They were never really legitimate political opponents. They were very messed up, broken people that were taken advantage of by the Democrat Party, that are watered down. Some of them willfully ignorant, but I have no idea. The more I think about it, the more I realize what a crock we've been sold. And who knows who's completely ignorant and who isn't, and who's just brainwashed and who's corrupted and mixture of both and this way and that. I have no idea. I'm just saying what I'm seeing. Welcome, Sandra and Mimi. Thanks for joining me. Oh man, I really wish the software worked because I had some really cool pictures to show you guys. Oh well. Maybe I'll make a video that is a kind of a rehash of what I'm talking about. I can do that maybe on Gamecaster. Okay, so that's a thing. That's what's going to happen. The blue pill, and that's what we're going to see. That's the spiritual apocalypse. What was considered normal, which was never that healthy. The old guard Greco Roman religious materialism is breaking down. It's taking its toll on people. They can't take. People are losing it. I mean, has anyone like noticed how wild traffic is getting? At least where I'm at. The East Coast is bad. I don't know about the left coast, but people are getting like they're starting to swerve more in this traffic. People are yelling at each other more. People are fighting more. People are just hunting. Oh yeah, there's this new mask hunting cult. You want to talk about? So what would happen in the Roman times? Again, they would have these mystery cults. People would come up with these kooky ideas to kind of explain why Rome was collapsing, and they tried to double back and retcon. Well, we were kind of wrong about the gods and the history of the universe, but maybe we just missed it, and there's something deeper. And so the mystery cults, they would start worshiping other gods, Egyptian gods, and they made some new Persian cult, the cult of Mithras, and people kind of went their own way, and they kind of tried to explain, and that's the new mystery cult, the COVID mystery cult. Oh, who has a mask? I'm saving lives. The God of health and safety. We will get through this together. And all these corporations are getting creepier. Today, Bank of America is committed to making sure that racial inequality is stopped and that we are all vaccinated like Bill Gates tells us. Bank of America, we will get through this together. They had some creepy Bank of America advertisement, which was completely just these are the normal people, right? They don't question anything. We're apparently going through the bubonic plague, right? And so we should shut everything down. And racial inequality still exists, even though black unemployment is at the lowest rate in the United States, at least. And white people are so afraid of being racist that they literally they bend over backwards to attacking other white people to show how they're not racist. I think it was a radio ad, Manuela. Yeah, it was really creepy. I heard it technically. I didn't see it. So that's happening, and there's this new things are getting kind of creepy. They're not just normal anymore. People are kind of going towards this creepy new agenda, and it's called the Antichrist agenda. It ain't the same anymore. We're not in Kansas anymore. And the mask is starting to fall off of these people in their beautiful suits and Stepford wife faces and all this nicey nice crap. It was all it doesn't look too good. It's like the plastic surgery starting to come off. Their face is starting to melt a little bit in the sun. Um, and yeah, Manuel, I'm I don't do Bank of America, but the one I bank, what's it called? It used to be I think it's Santander. Yeah, what used to be Sovereign Bank. They're in and out too. So I'm gonna have to look around for something. Um, and so that's the blue pill. Another thing you're going to see, guys, in the spiritual apocalypse, and we're already seeing, is the rise of the occult. That's the indigo pill. I'm definitely going to do a recap video so I can at least show you what I was going to show you with the pictures. And videos get their own amount of views, a little bit more than streams for some reason. Um, but um, you're going to see the rise of the occult. You're going to see Satanism and witchcraft on the rise. It already is. I mean, I saw, interestingly, I had I was at Aldi's, for example, and I was talking to a cash register, and the guy behind me, I had my Christian hoodie on, Mother Mary, and then the guy behind me had a Satanist face mask. Oh, doesn't that brighten up your day? I don't know how he was trying to not creep out people. He was trying to be all mellow and gentle with the cash register and have a nice day. But I'm like, yeah, that's kind of weird, dude. How you say have a nice day while having a Satanist face mask? But um, people are pretty confused these days. I mean, uh, there is the rise of the occult, but the occult. The reason why there's the occult is both dangerous and at the same time I don't take it that seriously. The first reason why it's dangerous is obviously because yes, they are unleashing darkness on the world, and if you don't believe in supernatural darkness, well, at the very least, you can take a look at these belief systems, and they're very egoistic. They're just pure solipsism at its finest, and they're very immature. Some people dabble in witchcraft, and they leave it alone, but that's still really bad because that just shows how spiritually mature. Yeah, I played with a Ouija board and I did to talk to grandma or something. And that was really cool, man. It's like, man, are we sitting ducks or what? Like, we don't even take the afterlife seriously. We just, like, it's just playing around with the seance and I heard someone got possessed. Wow, that's really cool, man. Possession is really interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. I like horror fiction, but I see these fugazis in the horror fiction community. You have me, who's like, I like listening to horror fiction because I like the art form of spooky stories, and it also does kind of ground me in the fact that there is evil out there. I like the good stuff. I don't like the amateur stuff. And I also like mystery and anything involving, good versus evil, Lord of the Rings and other works as well that are pretty good. But there's these kids slash adults, and they're like they clearly are just like thinking it's another thrill ride to the point where they're like, wow, I really want to go to a haunted house one day and see what happens there. And I'm like, these are the same people. You know what it is? It's the same it's the same extension of those people that like try to play with baby bears when they go to parks. It's like, yeah, well, the bears are cute. There was this video of that I was watching to pass the time of this poor park ranger, and he had the mama bear and her two cubs over there, and then he had all these white tourists in the behind their car. Ooh, and they like the bear was ready to charge, and they were and the park ranger had to yell at the bears, and he had to spray one of the bears, and they were the nice cute vegan white people were like, wow, those bears are they're so beautiful. We're out in nature, isn't this wonderful? And then finally, when the bear roars, they kind of slowly went back into their cars. Oh, maybe we should go. Maybe we're upsetting the bear. Maybe well, maybe next time, if we were more kind to the bears, maybe next time we can pet them and we could get to understand them more. I mean, it's just oh, the self preservation is the lack of self preservation is another sign of the apocalypse. It's like, I think that's what happened with the Romans too. Um, it's like there's some spell that goes over a civilization that's about to collapse. Um, it's like they're putting bacon on themselves, like, come here, come and get it, come on, lions, woo! Like they're like just so it's creepy. You have these people that are just willing to throw everything away because they don't have any sense of consequence. So that's the reason why I on the one hand the occult is dangerous, but on the other hand it's I don't take it seriously, and it's just an extension of our own egoism. Okay, people do this for curiosity, money, and power. Well, how is that any different from what most people do anyway? I mean, it really isn't any different. It's it's the religion of money, sex, power, and curiosity. There is no For me, it's no different from the sinful, wayward ways of our times, just turned up to 100. It's just different in degree, but not by nature. And I'm speaking as a sinner myself. Okay, so it takes one to know one, and I definitely think that's what this is. Now, um, how do we address these two problems? Well, the first is you have to uh, reject both. Okay, you have to reject the materialism and uh, any Christianity that is not orthodox and does not challenge materialism, and does not root itself in the cross and the first two commandments of Jesus. And what are they, folks? You have to love God with your heart, mind, soul, will, and whatever else. I can't remember the exact quote, but you've got to put everything you've got into loving God. And why should you love God? Because God is love, and He's your creator, and He's blessed you with everything, and you really start with 100 with God. I There's this saying that I'm going to bring up in confession. I keep saying, look, Father, I have to accept that I start with 100 in the class. And that's a saying where, it's a funny saying where it's like, you start with 100 in class and you can only go down from there. And it's true. God is infinite, and you already have something much more beautiful than what the world offers. That was Jesus's message. Okay, and you have to reject the world, detach from the world, and just accept that it's a test to see if you are really in it 100% for the supernatural, for the magical, for the mystical, for the childlike and the beautiful, right? That's what we have to get back to. And it doesn't mean matter is bad, and there's an actual danger to that, and I'll get to that later. Okay, there's a danger to going too hardcore and saying that creation is evil inherently. Okay, that's refuted by the first page of Genesis, and there can be some really warped, neurotic stuff coming from that. But we do have to get down to that. And that's the only way to fight the apocalypse anyway, because the whole point of the apocalypse, it challenges our stupid material notions. In fact, you could even say it's the failure of materialism, the apocalypse. Now, I personally think God lets apocalypses happening, whether it's the big chalupa, the Antichrist, or if it's a cycle of civilization. He For me, he clearly does this to sober us up, to call us to repent, to get us back to what matters in life, to have us slow down, and start treating each other with respect, and start looking at the little things and appreciating them, and the Christmas, appreciating Christmas again, and appreciating, the God who loves us. That's obvious to me. But even if you don't believe in that, um, it's clearly holding on to your, holding on No, don't take it away from me. That's clearly not doing any good for us. For many reasons, but I'm not going to get too much into that. It's a whole nother talk as to why holding on falls apart. But that's what we have to do. Now, for the occult, there's another thing we have to do, and it's more than just being a street preacher and telling them they're all going to hell. The first thing is obviously spiritual warfare prayer, because there's two different kinds of occultists from what I've seen, or people that get into uh, personalized kind of pick and choose religion. And hey, we could include some liberal Christians in that mix, because to me, it's pretty much the same thing. They often do get involved in the cult anyway. But the first thing we have to do is we have to pray for them. We have to pray and wait on God, because a lot of this, you have to understand how it works. When God tries to make people repent, they usually hit every branch all the way down the mountain. They get humbled. If he's trying to save their soul, they're going to keep smack, 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 smack until they finally are cornered. He does it to me. That's what happens to me. All right, I know it because he puts me through it. He keeps smack, smack, smack. You just hit every branch until you finally crash at the bottom of the ocean, until you finally like, fine, okay, I give up. And if the occultists that are they're into it because of money or power or whatever, well, the root of that is the worship of money, power, and egoism. That's to me, it's really a spiritual demonic extension of what we know to be true, like I said, and therefore God's going to have to uproot that in order to get through to them. So evangelizing someone that's into, let's say, witchcraft or whatever, or whatever they're doing, mostly will fall on deaf ears, because they're getting what they wanted, and they don't want to hear anything about humility and anything higher than themselves, or any higher purpose or self-sacrifice, because they rejected that whole spirit. They rejected the spirit of Christ. Now, the other group of people, which is what Elizabeth in the comment section is mentioning, are the curious people, and that's a completely different ball game. Now, what you have to do, and there's not everyone that is curious is going into the occult. There's people of other faiths. There's people that are like are lukewarm Christians. There's people that are ignorant. There's people that don't have any faith. Whatever it is, whatever they're doing to satiate their curiosity cannot be. You cannot fire and brimstone these people into believing in God, because you're insulting their intelligence. Okay, if you only have a Christianity of thou shalt not, you insult a person's intelligence. And you can even insult your own intelligence, and you have your own warped, messed up thing in your head, which actually does damage to you as well. Okay, we are not monkeys. We are not animals. We're not robots where you hit the animal with you hit the horse with the stick. The horse goes faster. You pull the horse back. The horse stops. Don't do that, Fido. Yell at Fido. Fido stops. Or you'll stay out in the cold, Fido. It's dumb, and it sounds dumb because it is dumb. Okay, there is a greater depth to the reality of salvation and damnation than just don't do it. Okay, if that really worked, why is it that we have, at least in the States, the biggest prison system in the world, with all the ramifications possible and very draconic consequences for many crimes, and people are committing more crime than ever before, or at the very least, there's still horrible crimes being committed? If that's actually how humans worked, why do people do such intense, insane things for a temporary pleasure or whatever? that it doesn't line up. Again, you're thinking it's actually materialism, again, poisoning the way you're looking at things. You're thinking about someone like an animal, like someone who has, pleasure, pain, and Pavlovian psychology. You punish in order to get a certain result. We're lab rats, right? That's a very, very step zero, very basic. I mean, maybe for children, like young children, and maybe young adults, that works. Thou shalt not, but I even question that. Look at the life of Saint Therese Lisieux, okay, and Saint Catherine of Siena, I believe. These were two very holy women who were raised. At least Saint Therese Lisieux was raised by a very holy family, and yeah, of course they understood consequences and why sin was bad. But those people brought their children into a mystical life of intimacy with God, and so things fell into place much easier for Saint Therese and her sisters, than what I'm seeing from the way. I mean, it's pathetic. Like, it takes years and years for someone to finally, if ever, see some depth to the gospel, because there's something wrong here. Okay. And yes, I do believe that, yeah, while there is a certain span of time where children, they're with vocal prayers, and they need to understand consequence, and they need to be disciplined by their parents, and they understand that that God disciplines his children, that there is there is eternal death and all that. That's important. You got to grow up, okay? God created us with this and this. And how does that work? We crave a relationship. We crave a relationship with something greater than ourselves, something that satisfies, something that gives us meaning. Okay? And if you keep up with this nonsense, you're not going to get good results for the curious types. You're not going to get good results for yourself either. I mean, honestly, I don't want to just be constantly, being feeling like some kind of evolved monkey who can speak, and he has to be smacked around to do anything correct. I sometimes I feel like that because I feel pretty weak and dumb, and I accept that part. But the Holy Spirit, when you commune with the Holy Spirit, he doesn't work like that. He really doesn't. He tries to inspire the soul to virtue. Um, it's just not the reality of God. And if many Christians experience God that way, and they're treating others more harshly, well, I exhort you to read the passage where Jesus says, what about that passage where the landowner forgives the debtor much, and the debtor goes out and harshly abuses someone else who owes him less than what he owed the landowner. What do you think God's gonna? How do you think God's gonna feel if he's trying to teach someone how to be merciful by being merciful to them, and they are just a total jerk ass to other people after being forgiven? I mean, it just, again, I just find there's such ignorance going on. We need a balance, okay? We need a balanced, beautiful Christianity, full of prayer and love and laughter. Orthodox, yes, but full of love and laughter and joy, okay, and prayer. And that's what we're going to see in this spiritual apocalypse. We're seeing this puritanical spirit. People are going to double down on this. It's a very human reaction, just like the other two reactions I mentioned. The Salem witch trial people, the Spanish Inquisition. Just people are going to try to intimidate people to come back to the tradition, and like I don't think I don't think there's anything of depth there. I think it's just a craving for order, a craving for law and order. Um, and yes, you can talk about the consequences of living with moral relativity, but if all you do is try to scare people, you're just going to you could lose yourself in that message, and you could hurt your own agenda if you are trying to save souls. So that's the third group of people, this puritanical, like double down, super hardcore thing. And I'm not against being conservative or being traditional. I'm just saying I know history and I know that this is all reflecting the fall of Rome. What was the reflection? What was the equivalent in the fall of Rome? It was the cult of Mithras. What happened was, um, these soldiers, and this is another thing that happens. There's usually a martial law crackdown. You know, um, the military are the last line of defense because the military have some understanding of sacrifice and discipline and virtue, and they usually are the ones that have to crack down on the corrupt politicians. I hope it happens soon, guys. I'm just saying. They usually are the ones that have to drag people out of their own decadence and do some do some butt kicking, to say the least, which is a very sad thing. Although the John Wayne side of us enjoys the evil getting taken down by the gunslinger, it's very sad that we have to resort to the law of the jungle. That's an absolute spiritual apocalypse. The fact that we had literally, really, guys, we had to come down to an old Western shootout to get anything done is pathetic. But it's very likely it could happen. It's very, hey, look, those Antifa guys are getting the wrong kinds of people get mad. They're starting to stab people, and let's just say I saw a video and they almost got killed. They almost got I mean, they almost got their heads caved in by the Patriots. So, uh, I really don't want to see anyone get killed, but they're not. Look, they better lay off the drugs and chill out, and understand how basic tactics work and how basic physics. Like a 210-pound all muscle man versus a 90-pound woman slash transgender person. I don't care how high you are, it's not going to end well, okay? Just like the people that think that they can pet, grizzly bears out in the parks, the probably same cut of the same cloth, and people that think they can dabble with demons and it not backfire and witchcraft. It's all this same floofy silliness, that immaturity. Yeah, it's not going to end well for them. I am not intimidated by Antifa. I really am not. I never was. I always had a feeling these guys were paper mache. Um, so but that's what could possibly happen. But the cult of Mithras was they tried to create a religion off of this soldier god from Persia, and it fell apart because there's more to life than simple stoicism. Um, okay, so that's not going to last, and we can't have just stoicism. And I usually harp about that a lot. Uh, well, Mimi, the only reason why they're destroying Portland is because they're not in Texas, right? Like they get away with it because the mayor and the governor, like you say, is literally in cahoots with them and possibly part of them, and the police are they're, and so are the people living there. They're all just they're so stoned out of their minds, and they're all wusses. Um, but well, if they try anything in Washington D.C. on January 6th, they have to be the dumbest people, and they might do it. I saw these Antifa guys actually go to the biggest biker rally in the U.S. and they tried to pick fights with. One of the guys tried to kick over a guy on a motorcycle, and the biker guys descended on them like wolves, and the police saved their lives by holding back the biker guys and just arresting them. So maybe they are that dumb, but I wouldn't want to be part of Antifa. I'm even if I wanted to, I would just think this is not the time to be part of Antifa. Maybe later when there's more commies um, in the United States and in when they have more people on their side, I would join Antifa. But now is not the time to join Antifa. I don't think that's a good idea. Um, so the next thing that we're going to see in the spiritual apocalypse is you're going to see people get very depressed um, and frightened, and you're already seeing that. But there is something good about this group of people, the doomer type people, and there's going to be more doomers. More boomers will become doomers, as I say, and more normal people will have existential crisis. And it doesn't matter if they're believers or not. The believers will realize they have to go have a much deeper belief because it's not cutting it. And those that don't believe, as their toys get taken away or their safety and security gets threatened, they will also have to realize that they need some deeper way to live life. I don't believe in this idea that I'm not against this idea that the pleasure principle is inherently bad if you define pleasure as happiness. Every human desires happiness. It's just how do you define happiness and pleasure is the big question. So if you define true happiness as being one with God and spiritual joys through the cross, and the ultimate high heaven, the ultimate bliss, you could say that's still the pleasure principle. But what pleasures or happiness um, is rooted in truth and rooted in true peace is the question. You can get a lot of pleasure eating the new McRib, but what will happen after that? How will it really affect you? Um, so that's the question. And this is where mysticism comes in, okay? Mysticism is what happens when the psyche or the soul is hit by such great questions and is challenged on such a deep level as to the meaning of its existence, that it must come up with new conclusions and it desires a change of life that goes beyond the material. Okay. Now, this opens a whole can of worms. This is not the end of the broadcast, and that's why you should become a Christian. Okay, I am trying to put together this mini series on Awake, through looking at these different problems as to why what we're doing here on the channel um, is good. But there's some different things that are happening on the mystical side that are kind of like, they seem new, but they're actually old ideas. And we have to look at what's going to happen in this apocalypse and what I'm seeing already. Okay. And what I'm seeing is the first thing is I'm seeing a rise of people accepting death. Okay. I'm seeing nihilism rise up. And that's kind of like the basic entry point. Now, that's a good place to be, actually, sometimes, because if you already accept death, you are kind of accepting an objective reality that humbles you and it puts you in a place of, you know what? I'm not in control of everything. I'm not my own God. You are your own destiny. You can be whatever you want to be, except you're going to be 6 foot under no matter what you do. And that grounds you on a little footing there. But now you have all these other things like, money could be taken away, food can be taken away, this can be taken away. You got to put on, your rights can be taken away. And what does that say about inevitability? That says that even the metaphysical things are passing, even um, what we think is love, or what we think is peace, what we think, is health, or what a citizen should have. If that's passing, then our minds immediately go either into panic mode, or they think, okay, I need to clean up my act, and I need to treasure things that can't be taken away. So you're going to see more people, take bike rides, or maybe, try to avoid the media. They start turning off the internet, start turning off the TV. This is good. Okay. They do a little panicking, but at least they're starting to get it. They're starting to feel they're starting to feel the pressure. They're starting to feel the fire underneath their butts, and they're like, ooh, well, this is toasty. I don't really like this. I got to kind of move around the seat a little bit. Okay. And as people detach from the noise, they're going to start realizing how calm everything is if they detach, and they start realizing, we really give ourselves more headache than needed. You know, mathematically, um, mathematically, you could have 80 to 90% of your life be peaceful, even within a regime that's tyrannical. If you really think about what's re- truly important, and you live your life ordered towards peace and harmony and beauty and justice and right and wrong, outside of you getting eventually executed, most of your days will be in peace. Now, once you're at that point and you start throwing away the junk, and you start accepting objective reality, you start accepting things are bad for you and they mess you up, and you have addictions that really are just making you more miserable. Now you're starting to think, well, if life is beautiful in a very bittersweet sense, but there's a longing here for something that's permanent, why do I have to accept death being permanent? Why do I have to go along with this stupid trend of that's all there is, man? I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, and there's no objective evidence for God because I'm so smart. And it's very easy for me to say this because I'm living in an academic world where I get to puff up my ego all the time. And he was doing great right before we started realizing that we're not going to do so great. And now I wonder how he's doing, because the atheists are starting to look pretty stupid as they see the fabric of society fall apart. And so now that you're in this zone, and it takes a lot of discipline. I need to discipline myself on this. But once you're in that zone of simplicity, day by day, living in the present, trying to get yourself back together, still very afraid, you're in the zone of what's next, and that's the mystical, okay? And there's three different people that are archetypes of what I think we're going to see. The previous groups of people I mentioned are human slash selfish reactions to the falling apart of of society, regardless of whether or not there's some spiritual thing behind it. To me, their spiritual thing isn't very spiritual. It's just an extension of of their own comfort seeking. But then things do get deeper here. And the first person that we're going to see on the horizon is a new type of hippie. Now, I have a picture of this guy. Maybe I'm going to put it in the thumbnail so hopefully you can see it, but I really need to do a recap video. I think I'll do that. And there's this guy at Right Side Broadcasting at a Trump rally, and he is the shamanic conservative. Okay. We're seeing this new breed of conservative hippies. It's very interesting, where So this dude, I mean, he clearly tripped on some kind of peyote or something in the desert, or shrooms or whatever. And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm for Trump, and I'm here to spread my vibes, and to I'm here in case there's any witches or Satanists. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my energies to fight the battle against these globalists, man." And so this is more of like, like how the hippies tried to be like the Native Americans, except they weren't really that serious, because Native Americans would never go along with the lifestyle of like 1960s 70s American, the sexual revolution, but they still said they are. Well, I think people are actually going to start actually trying to go back to pantheism and polytheism and trying to be traditional in that sense. We're going to start seeing some of that in the spiritual apocalypse. Um, and he seems to be suggesting that, you know, we have these inner powers and there's these spirits we can commune with. And it's really funny because there's this really funny there's this guy named Sam Hyde who made like this hilarious video where he was pretending to be some kind of Native American chieftain, and talking about the Great Spirit. And then he got interrupted in the park by some angry park ranger, which is just so funny, like on so many levels. But it was already a parody. But we're gonna actually see people like trying this stuff out because they want some order, they want some balance in their life, which I understand. There's probably going to be a lot of similarly. There's probably going to be a lot of Taoists. And why do I say that? Why there's going to be a lot of Taoists and northern Native American type people? There's also northern Norse pagans showing up in the military and along the young men. So there's people actually worshiping Thor and things. It's why are they doing this? Because they see the fall of the culture of license, right? Do what thou wilt. And they also see the fall of materialism and the fraudulent Christianity that doesn't have much depth. And now they're really like confused and they're like, all right, so maybe I'll try out a religion that gives me the order and peace and gives me some depth in my life. I need to get my act together. I'm going to watch Dr. Jordan Peterson, and I am going to try out some shamanism, and maybe I'll listen to Alan Watts and Alan Watts, the kind of Buddhist guy, kind of new agey, but he's a little bit more serious. And I'm listening to Alan Watts YouTube videos about like enlightenment theory and where do we stand in life and all this and that. And that's what we're going to see a lot of. Okay. And what's going to happen there is this is going to lead to a lot of monism and syncretic religion. But what this brand is more of, well, we have superpowers and we can tap into this and make ourselves healthy enough to fight the New World Order. And we don't need to be attached to our understandings of self-identity because we're going to become one with nature. Okay. But they're going to mean it this time. They're actually going to try to be one with nature. Not many people actually try this, but they're actually going to go for it. They're not going to just talk a big game and then become Wolf on Wall Street tycoons, ironically, after all of their hippie nonsense. They're going to try it. And what they're going to realize is that this whole like become one with nature thing doesn't really have the extra oomph that explains the why of human existence. Okay. And that's the problem with a lot of this, like, a little bit less superficial, but these people trying out this new esotericism. First of all, okay, so here's my first problem. Yeah, see you, Liz. Didn't see your comment there, but I hope you enjoyed it so far. If you believe in spirits or whatever, and different gods, or you believe in nature, well, it's all fine and dandy to be more at peace with the world, but does it really explain everything that we experience in life? Like, does it explain why is the universe this way, right? Why is there a love? Why is there beauty? Why is there order? Is it really just an illusion, right? Does that really speak to your soul? Maybe you could find some peace and beauty in the practice, the spiritual practice of what you're doing. But do you really want to believe that everything's one? When you do that, what are you saying? Well, your ethos kind of, I mean, a lot of these guys, they keep saying, at least on Parler, I see people say, well, we're fighting the Luciferian globalists. Okay. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Great. I'm glad. But where is your ethos to say that what they're doing is evil if we're all one? Right? Where is your ethos? Where's the divine punishment there, right? If you're against Jeffrey Epstein and the boys, well, if you believe that all is one and that, we're all going to become one with nature or whatever, then how do you refute what they're saying is bad? Like, you can emotionally believe that what they're doing is bad and globalism is bad, but you don't have a rational reason as to why evil is really evil. And then, of course, here's my other big problem here. Um, how do you know we're going to become one with nature? And if nature is an illusion, and we're like in reality, and we're like, we're spirit, we're the great spirit or whatever, the cosmos, living out our lives in human bodies. Well, one, why would God become a lesser form only to then go back to himself? And two, if nature just one day separated into different realities, that it's an illusion and we have to find our way back, then what's to stop it from doing it again, right? Like, if the world is that unpredictable, when we do become one with nature or whatever, what's going to stop it all happening again? Because it's just an energy force. It's just, and so that's not a very satisfying thing ultimately for an afterlife, for me at least. But that's what we're going to see in the spiritual apocalypse. People are going to start searching. We're going to see more of this type. And then comes, I know I'm going overtime. I try to keep it to 1 hour, but I have two more people that we're going to see emerging on the scene. Then comes Mani from the Christian, well, not Christian, but the Gnostic cult of Manichaeism. Okay. Now, what we're going to see very interestingly is there's going to be Christians becoming Gnostic and strangely kind of New Agey. And there's going to be possibly New Ager types that are becoming more serious Buddhists that also become more of this type. Okay, this is like another level. Mani from the cult or the religion of Manichaeism. This is a very complicated religion. Okay, and Saint Augustine was part of this religion as well. And so Mani, he was raised in by Christian Gnostics, and he had this spiritual experience. He created this very complicated syncretic religion where it combined Jesus and Buddha and Hinduism and Zoroastrianism and this and that and so forth. And as he meditated and prayed, and what he did was he accepted the reality of evil and sin. So this is someone who has some kind of metaphysical depth, probably very well educated. St. Augustine was brilliant. He was educated. So this has some firepower to it. This isn't just any old hokey doke, quick philosophy, quick new age crystals thing. They did have a set of principles. They believed in virtue and vice. Okay. And they also had a spiritual path that was kind of Eastern, kind of Persian, like a mixture of the Persian and Indian, where you would try to get they believe that Jesus was kind of like Jesus and Buddha were all part of this giant, really up there, like they believe that God was much more complicated and way up there than we see him. This is very Gnostic, like God's way up there, almost indescribably up there. And he believed that Adam and Eve weren't supposed to copulate, or they weren't supposed to have kids, and that sex was evil, and that Adam's true test and Eve's true test was to realize that the divine was within them, and they didn't need to satiate themselves with the pleasures of the material realm. But since they failed, Jesus and Buddha and all these guys came down to teach us that the root of all the problems is the material. If we accept matter as evil, or that we need to reject all material understandings of happiness and pleasure, that's kind of Buddhist in a sense, or Jainist, right? Like in a sense, Jesus will help us become like this super abstract intellectual transcendental person, and that's heaven. Like there's like different levels of heaven. It's really interesting, guys. You got to check it out, but it's way too heady. And he was a teenager when this happened, so I think he was a little bit of an edgy emo kid, a little bit of a doomer there, going into his belief system. But so you're going to see that coming from different strains, and I'm starting to see this. Father Ripperger mentioned that he's starting to see this happen in very scrupulous Christians who don't understand that while sin is bad and it's definitely to be avoided, and Jesus is supposed to save us from sin, God created the world and said it was good. So salvation in the Christian sense is simply God transforming the flesh, soul, and heart and everything about our life, for it to be holy and good. It doesn't mean that we should starve ourselves, meditate until we are completely pure and we're angels, right? We're angels. We have just no desire. We have achieved true nirvana. And it was a lot like Christian Buddhism almost. In fact, he even painted a picture of the Buddha Jesus. It's literally called the Buddha Jesus, where it's really, really well done. Like who made this art? 1 second. I mean, it's Persian art. He was clearly inspired by Persian artistic stuff. Aha. Manichaean painting of the Buddha Jesus. Again, I wish I had my software working. I thought it was working, and now it didn't let me. I can only do webcam, but here it says it's a beautiful picture. It's a Southern Song Dynasty silk hanging scroll. It was preserved in Japan apparently, and the Manichaeans made it out there apparently. Like I think they did inspire a Chinese version of Manichaeism. I forget what they were named, but I remember reading about them. So we have to be careful, because if we end up like the Manichaeans, all kinds of strange things happen. Okay, people will like do hardcore fasting. There might be mass suicides. That's what happened with one of the Gnostic, the Arian heresy and the Gnostics. People were killing themselves in order to go to heaven. These were Christians who believed that they should kill themselves to go to heaven. And you think, well, that's us Americans, look, we got too much of this to ever do something that hardcore. And you'd be surprised what an emotionally erratic and desperate person can do. Case in point, how about the Heaven's Gate cult, right? Remember them? That was kind of a new agey cult that happened during the hippie times. And when people are in the wrong state of mind, or they're very desperate for answers, very quickly, you'd be surprised at what great lengths the human soul can go to just to have meaning, just to have purpose. So watch out, don't underestimate the problem of going the other way. It's like the opposite. Um, Instead of the guy who's like, yeah, man, we're all gonna be one, love and peace, and make love, not war. Or the guy who says, well, I don't really know what I'm doing, I'll just be a Native American or a Taoist and just try it out because I need a better diet or something. I want to be detached. Then you have the people that go so hardcore, they're like, this is just, I'm just ready to die. This is all an illusion, and it can happen. So what is the last person that? Yes, it is. It's a form of spiritual castration, Mimi, and some of them did castrate themselves. The castration was another thing that happened, and even sexual license at would happen within these anti um, these anti-material cults. How and why, even though it doesn't make any sense, even though they're supposed to be against sex? Well, St. Augustine, he was part of it, and he said that because they believed in this strange thing where God and the devil were equally powerful and there's light and darkness, and that they believed that darkness was this separate and evil was this separate entity. They believed that there was no sin because it was the evil God in us making us making us do bad things because it was blinding us from our true enlightenment. So what happened was, I know it's complicated, but isn't that similar to the devil made me do it in a strange way? It was also probably mental illness at this point, mental illness and all kinds of broken, disordered thinking, and almost like a schizophrenia can happen here. But there would be great falls into sexual disorder and impassions because it was when you have a philosophy or an ideology that goes against human nature, you have a great disorder, and you start in your subconscious, you start lashing out, things don't make sense. And that can happen to even Christians that are just trying to do an orthodox walk. We fall, we get up, we don't know what we're doing, we need Jesus' help, there's stuff about ourselves we can't understand. Well, it gets even worse if you have a wonky religion that's not really matching up with reality. And so what would happen was, because St. Augustine said, because we didn't really believe in sin, we would absolve ourselves to the point where we wouldn't even think about our own selfishness because we didn't think selfishness existed, because we all thought we were part of the divine cosmos and eventually things will work itself out. We don't need to do any repenting. So is anyone a little bit like, woo, like, is anyone feeling high just hearing this stuff? It's really interesting from a historical perspective. Okay, I'm 15 minutes over. I got 2 minutes left and I'm done. The last person we'll see on the horizon, which I hope to be, is the simple, contemplative, Orthodox Christian. And if I had my software up, I would show you the picture of Blessed Carlo Acutis. Okay, this is someone who looks at all of this confusion, the spiritual apocalypse, and simply says, I just want to live out the gospel. I just want to pray and love the Lord. And I do want the mystical. I do want to experience uh, the supernatural, but I want to experience the triune God. I am putting my eggs in the basket of the religion that lasted for thousands of years, that has stood the test of time, that, although on one hand does not have self salvation or any sort of strange, semi new age stuff, on the other hand, does not make excuses, that rests and trusts in Jesus' transforming light. And I'm going to be a normal, healthy person. I'm going to love my neighbor. I'm going to be there for the people that are confused and in darkness. I'm going to try to understand and pray for them. And I'm going to stand up for the truth of the gospel. And I am going to be the I am going to humbly follow the true Christ, the true mystical Jesus Christ, who is the fullness of truth, and can satisfy the desires of all of these people that are searching that I mentioned before. And that's what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put my eggs in the basket of divine wisdom. I'm trying to believe that whatever these people are searching for will be satisfied in Christ and that Christ can do it. So if you're stuck in this stuff, no matter which category you're in, Christ can take you there and he can satisfy you and take you places you never thought you'd been before. You may find yourself more, at peace and kind of in a way one with nature, with God, than you never thought you'd be possible. Maybe you need some of that. Maybe you're too materialistic, but maybe if you're too hippied out, maybe you need a little grounding in a true holistic viewpoint of death, taxes, politics. All this stuff still matters. All of the longings of the human heart, the universe and creation is good, and God said it was good. So we need that balance there. So that's what I think we're going to see in rising up in these times. So it's very exciting and very adventurous, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. But this is a bit of a segue into my next discussion. So thanks for coming out, everyone. Hope I didn't keep you too long. And God bless. Praying for you, and I hope to see you next time, 2 weeks from now, on my next Awake show. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.